Sorry, Carrie. One more countdown. We're ready.
Okay. Countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back to the Burly Fishing Podcast. I am Jeff Burlingame, joined with my co-host Paul Glass, and we have on the show today Carrie Cates. She is a tournament angler out of New York, and we're very excited to talk to her. Carrie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Doing fantastic. We've got a ton of questions for you, we're just going to bombard you with them in a little bit here. But before we get into that, if you guys enjoy the episode, if you enjoy the podcast, be sure to subscribe, hit us with a review, 5 stars if you like it, drop us a comment, and let us know ways that we can improve the show, or let us know topics that you would like us to address on the show. And of course, you can find us in a whole lot of other places. Hit us up on social media at Burly Fishing or on YouTube, Burly Fishing. And without further ado, Paul, let's take it away, man.
All right, so this is the last week. It's supposed to be March. It was supposed to be March Madness. It turned into April Madness because we didn't get March Madness.
Now it's May.
And then now it's May Madness.
And we have
because it's like the end of May and it is madness. So what we did is we made a bracket of like items that you would typically take with you when you go fishing. And the idea is that we've ranked all those items and then we pitted them against each other. And so you basically have to pick between one of those two things. You can only take one of the two things. And we worked it all the way down. We're in the finals. There's only 2 items left remaining. Number 1 ranked sunglasses against number 4 ranked cellular telephone. Many, many reasons. Battles were fought. Hats and water bottles got discharged. Nippers never even had a shot. But here we are, shades versus cell phone. I always let Jeff go first because I like to break him down afterwards and tell him he's silly. Jeff, which one are you gonna pick? Your sunglasses or your phone?
So this is an important question because you always have to like up the stakes here. Do I have a GoPro?
I don't know. Do you?
I do.
Yes,
I do.
you do. You have a GoPro. I think that's fair. I think most people have both.
Yeah. So it's not ideal, but I would say if it's a sunny day, it's gonna be really tough for me not to have shades. I'm like already pretty photosensitive. Like the sunlight drives me nuts. And my eyes will hurt all day long. So I can't say I would have that much fun. I would hate not having the emergency protocol of having a cellular telephone on me, but I could do a better job of just saying, hey wife, I'll be on this body of water from this hour to this hour, and if I do not resurface at this hour, you should call the police. So I'm going to say shades, and I'm going to say that I'll just go heavy on the emergency protocol without the phone. Carrie, you're next. What do you think?
That is a good question. I would have to go with phone.
Whoa.
I love my shades. I wear them all the time, especially polarized sunglasses. It's a requirement for fishing.
Mm-hmm.
However, I mean, in a life or death situation, you got to go with a cell phone.
Well, I can definitely respect that. I think this is a really hard battle here between 1 and 4.
So the other thing that's been brought up with the cell phone, Jeff was alluding to it with the GoPro. If a lot of what you're doing as either like a passion project or maybe as your living is revolving around either recording or, somehow sharing your, what you're doing on the water, even if you're not catching fish, which happens.
Never.
No, we always do. If that's what you're doing, then like that is like a work tool. That would be like, going into the office without a laptop. Like that would not be helpful. I would rather. I have to go. I'm going shades, 1,000%, 999%. Only,
oh no, we went against the guest. This is.
I know. This is the first time actually.
This is the first time.
Shades are just like, it's one of those things. Hat, it was right up there. That was like a very challenging. I think I voted against it. I'm gonna have to check the records. I think I voted for hat, but no, shades and hat are like, it seems like such a not big deal until you're on like hour 7 and you would really like to stay out and you just don't have it in you because like you're either overheated, you can't see what you're doing, or you're so uncomfortable, you're like, it's not worth it.
Yeah. Your retinas are fried and you're just sick of it.
I also have that like old man syndrome where I like feel proud of myself when I like don't touch my phone for 4 hours or whatever. I'm like, oh, look what I did.
Yeah.
Look at me. I'm special.
You would say that.
All right, that was it. Reigning champ. Wait.
Shades.
Shades
are the winner.
Close runner-up. Can't believe it made it this far. Number 4 cell phone. We will post the full bracket in case you're curious.
Yeah.
But yeah, with that, and I'm gonna be really sad because now I have to write something for episode question. And this was a lot of fun, so I'm gonna miss this already. Maybe we'll do June Madness. Who knows?
Just keep the brackets.
Just keep it rolling. So we also do a weekly check-in, so we want to see what people have been up to for the last week. We'll do the same order, so I'll give you an example. But Carrie, we're coming to you next. But Jeff, what has been going on this week? I already know because I've been hanging out with you, I feel like, every other day. But yes, what's been going on?
Yeah, so Paul and I have been doing a ton of fishing. So this last weekend, we went to a new body of water that we had never fished before. And I want to say the nickname for it, but that includes the name of the lake.
I think that one's okay because that lake sucks.
Okay. So it's called No Luck Duck. And we found this out after fishing it for 8.5 hours.
Okay.
We came off the water. Some guy was like, "Oh, hey, well, did you guys do any good?" We were like, "Yeah, I mean, we had a few. Like we did catch a few."
Yeah.
And it was a tough day, tough challenge. So I was happy with that. The guy was like, "Yeah, we call this like No Luck Duck because nobody
catches anything here."
And like the whole day, Paul and I were in kayaks. Everybody else was in boats, and they were like kind of encircling us, you know, and we were just weaving between them, and nobody was like lifting anything out of the water. I didn't see, other than that one boat, they were jerkbait fishing because it was super clear water. There was one boat. I saw him land like 2 bass back to back on a jerkbait. And other than that, nothing. Like it's really weird. Like most of the rim of the lake, which was like 400 yards wide, was like 5 feet or less deep. It was all sand. And there was like just patches of foliage here and there. That was it. And the fish were right tight on some of those patches, but they weren't taking anything but a crankbait. And I got one fish on the rabid baits that came in the May monsterbass box. I got one fish on that Ned, which was sweet. I was pumped about that because it was my favorite bait out of all the boxes I got. Yeah, so that was cool. The rest were on this stupid Bandit Lures crank that came in the mystery tackle box. Because we did a comparison of the monster bass versus MTB, and they like came out pretty like even, to be honest.
Close.
Like it was really close. And Paul caught one on the giant orange crankbait that came in my MTB box.
So like
it's
7-inch long,
16-foot diver. It's got
called
like
the clown lure. It's just
just a giant bearing in it. It's so loud. But yeah, like it was just the weeds were up to the top of the water, and they were like really tough weeds to get through, and they were only taking the crankbait. So we were just like grinding weeds, cleaning the trebles, grinding weeds, and then looking for humps. And it was a day, but it was a lot of fun. There was like no sun that day. You wore shorts and were cold, but just gritted your teeth all day long.
Screw it, I'm not going in.
It was great. And I lost my cell phone, and then some dude found it for me. Yeah, not in the water, luckily.
Okay.
I have a tether now, a Rogue Fishing Co. tether, which is, I love it.
The irony of buying a tether
and then losing my phone
5 days later, losing your phone. Like the one moment it's not on the tether. It's like
we were unloading. There was like 57 people at the ramp, so I was rushing, and I went to put my phone in my pocket, and I just missed my pocket, and it hit the ground. And then some guy just he picked it up. Paul called it. The guy answered, brought it right to me. It was like lifesaver. So that made it a great day. But we had some fish. We had pike, rock bass, some largies. You know, it was a good day. Other than that, I've been buying way too much stuff, like absurd spending amounts. So is Paul. But like checking out some new gear. We're gonna do some reviews on the channel. I got some extra Plano Edge boxes, and then I took out a loan to buy a new kayak. So that's happening. I don't know when. It's up to Paul. Paul's holding me back. I'm ready to go. Paul's got to sell his stupid boat, which he doesn't.
There's a lot coming down the pike for the YouTube channel, and then obviously fodder for the podcast as well.
Yeah, we got some stuff going. But Carrie, what's been up with you?
like you, I've been doing a lot of fishing. So yes. Um, right now in New York, we're kind of in a delayed season. So we're kind of like in the pre-spawn, just on the cusp of spawn. Um, and it's kind of a little hard because you think you know where exactly they are, and then they're not quite there yet. And then with the crazy weather we've been getting, it's I mean we're getting lows of like almost freezing at night, all the way up to 70, 80 degrees during the day, all over the place.
with
So
with like very prolonged fronts.
Yeah.
And I feel like prolonged fronts. I wrote about this in one of our. We have like an email that we do, and I do the write up for it. And I wrote about weather, and the common thing is like fish right before the front, and then sometimes depending on how big of a change in pressure there's afterwards. Afterwards can be a great time to fish as well.
mhm.
Those fronts are so long. They're lasting like 3 days. Cause like, or there'd be like little like waves and they'll kind of come and go and like targeting. Like if you have free time to target them, great. But like trying to even get within like a half day of it has been almost impossible. And I feel like it's throwing fish off because we've had some days where we had one day it was like remember we were on the Grand River, we fished pre-front, it came in at 8 o'clock, we got off the water at 4 or 5 just because of life, but it was like we were on it and we hammered them. The next weekend we had almost the same scenario in terms of weather. We probably got off within 2 hours of rain, like starting to sprinkle. We did not hammer them. We did okay, but it was not even close to the same. And it was because we had come off of a front that had lasted for like 4 days. It rained and snowed on and off for like 4 days. It's just
Wow.
It was
very,
nuts.
very, just like to your point, very weird weather. I mean, like, I guess we always think it's weird weather when we're in it. Like 3 years ago, we had like the longest lasting winter ever.
Oh,
Like we were
dude.
getting off of
Yes.
snow in like early May, and it was like, why? So I guess you always think that, but this is, especially if you're somebody who like starts obsessing over the weather, definitely weird, super weird.
Yeah, so we're like, I don't know if you know, we're in Michigan, so we're like right around the corner from you.
Yeah.
We were nodding our heads aggressively because everything you said is what we've been saying to ourselves.
Very
Like,
similar weather patterns. We
yeah.
pretty much get y'all's leftovers.
That's the one. You
Yeah,
guys
it's
get them
been
worse than we
nuts.
do, though, for sure.
Oh, definitely. What else though? Like any good catches this week? I mean, just been a struggle. What's it been like?
It's been hit and miss. Mostly dinks to decent like 2 pounders, and nothing really big. Which is weird because last year I was catching PBs like every 2 weeks. I was upgrading, and
Yeah.
this year it's tougher, and it's because of the weather. Because
Mhm.
the weather patterns last year were a lot more stable.
Yeah.
I think the other thing too is when the weather gets like that, I have this like sense of urgency around watching the weather because I feel like that 1 week where it's gonna be like the perfect end of spring weather or like mid-spring weather is gonna happen. I'm afraid I'm gonna miss it.
Yep.
I'm just like, because like I feel like there's every day that it isn't that weather that I'm looking for. Like the water temp isn't like above the mid 50s, and you're not really like getting into it, and you're not like starting to feel like the water's transitioning into summer. You feel that window of opportunity shrinking and shrinking and shrinking because you know that one day you're just gonna like wake up and it's gonna be 85 and it's never gonna cool off again, and you're totally gonna miss it. And like I like stare at the weather app like constant, like the one that I use like constantly, and I'm just like waiting for that like perfect window of like today's gonna be it. Yeah, I hate that. That bothers me.
You just have to go every day.
That's the
Exactly.
thing. Yeah, you do. You just need to go out like every
You
single
won't miss
time.
it.
Is it not raining? We should go.
Oh, even if it
Ugh,
is, man, we've had some of our
screw
best
it.
days.
Very true.
We always complain about it raining like every time Paul and I go out, and it hasn't. It hasn't. I knocked on wood. Don't worry. It hasn't rained the last like 3 or 4 times we've been out. 4, maybe.
Mhm.
It's just been crazy. But we've had some good times in the rain. It's always fun.
Yep.
So
I
I
mean,
have. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, as long as you got your wet weather gear, you're fine.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's always the boat.
Maybe for you, not always for me.
You'll have so much room soon, you won't even know what to do with it. You'll just bring like an extra chair. You'll have your grill.
Yeah, here we go. So I will say I don't want to give away too much this week because we have been doing a lot of preparation for some stuff that's upcoming for the YouTube channel and the podcast. But one thing that I am doing that I'm very pumped about is I have planned a trip for tomorrow. I'm going to go carp fishing because we have had a ton of rain, and I'm going to do it on the fly. We're going to go. My buddy and I are going to go hit a park nearby that when it floods, the carp just like flock to this like flooded sandy area, and you can actually get in behind the flat, so you're essentially like cutting them off from like the deeper water, and you can basically sight cast for them. So I'm gonna be doing that on the fly, which is like so much fun. It's like the most underrated. It is so underrated. It's a ton of fun. So I'm gonna be getting into that.
That's gonna be rad, man. I saw the painted trout. Our boys over at the painted trout were posting about that.
Guess who tipped me off? I wanted to give Neil from the painted trout, who was one of our previous guests, doing my scouting for me, so I appreciate the fiery hot tip.
There you go.
All right, so on to the show meat. So this is like the meat and potatoes of what we're doing today. So I always start with like the kind of the same question, and really that is sort of like what is like the beginning of your story in fishing. I mean, obviously it's something I'd like to let you. I don't want to give away too much. I want you to walk us through kind of how you got started, and then kind of take us through where you are today.
The journey, if you will. That's all.
Oh.
In 5 days or less.
You got plenty of time.
Wow. So fishing, I was always interested in doing it as a kid. I never had the opportunity. I grew up in Northwest Texas, and there's not a lot of bodies of water there. And I didn't really have anybody that was that interested in the fishing. So I would watch Bill Dance. His show would come on early in the morning. I was watching. I'm like, oh, that looks so cool. So fast forward, a few years, I joined the military, and I was stationed at West Point here in New York, and I met a guy who was an avid fisherman, and he said, hey, I'll take you fishing. And he taught me everything, all the beginning stuff. And I've been fishing ever since.
I love it. And so how did you, okay, another question that I ask everybody, because I'm always looking for a companion, but I never find one. Are you a catch and keep, or are you a catch and release?
Completely
fisherman?
Catch and release.
I'm never going to get one.
Bro, she's a tournament angler. Like, what did you expect?
I
literally don't keep just because I'm lazy and I don't want to clean them. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I do like the release. I enjoy it. Paul is an avid keep them and eat them, and he gets so mad.
It depends on what fish. It really depends on what fish. Like if you catch a nice trout or crappie, they're good.
Oh yeah.
But everything else, it's pure sport.
So the next time that I feel like I want to do it, I'm gonna keep 2 bass, and I'm gonna chop them up, and I'm gonna show you guys how to make those bass delicious.
And you're gonna make so many bass anglers so mad.
My favorite release is the one where it ends in a
right into the oil.
Nice.
Can you do that release? Right. That would be a great one. That's like a good Instagram boomerang shot.
Do a catch and cook, yeah.
I can't do it. All right. So the one thing I want to talk to you about, and I have a fascination with this. So both Jeff and I came to fishing very seriously, like much later in life, closer to our 30s and mid 20s. I don't know. And
somewhere in there.
Whatever, later in life, not at a young age, and I guess it almost seems like an inevitable progression of like, okay, like I enjoy fishing, okay, then I get a little bit better at fishing, then I spend a lot of money and a lot of time, and I get a little bit better over that time, regardless of how much money I spent, and then all of a sudden you're like, what's next, right? And a lot of people, especially if you bass fish a lot, you kind of like, because it's so much easier than it used to be. I mean, you can like tournament fish from your phone at this point. it's like you feel this draw to be like, oh, well, the next thing for me to do is like to do a tournament. And like, I've never, up until like the last couple of months, never thought I would do a tournament. I'm now considering doing it. I do feel like if I do it, I'm going to end up with a serious problem on my hands because I'm going to want to do it all the time. And I will like
Yes.
scratch everything else off of my calendar and be like, well, this is all I'm doing. Cool. Bye, family. But
No, you
so
won't.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess what I really would like to know is like, one, how did you start me off? Like, how did it become the thing that you were like, well, this is how I want to spend like 90% of my time? Not only that, not only how, but like why?
So
Well,
why?
I've always been a very competitive person. I've always been into sports, and it just seemed like a natural progression. I was learning more and more about fish. I was getting more into targeting species such as bass, and I'd heard that there was a club local to me for veterans, and I decided that I'd go and check it out, see what it was like, and I ended up joining, and they do tournaments, several throughout the year. Great group of guys, and you get to compete and everything, and it was a natural progression for me. It's the thrill. It's winning. I mean, you don't win a lot of money, but it's it's definitely you learn something every single time you go out there. You get to meet new people. You get to watch their tactics and their thought process. You learn stuff. You get to get a different perspective of fishing because before I was pretty much stuck on the bank, and now even though I'm in the back of the boat, I'm still learning stuff. And whenever I eventually do get a boat, I'll be that much more educated. And when I start getting, to the front of the boat, I'll be that much more ahead of the game.
Be
Be
hammering
a,
them.
be a pro, man. That's what it's all about. I love that in your profile, by the way, is how you said the goal is just to fish at like the highest level. Just really, and you literally just laid that out. Just work your way from the back of the boat to the front of the boat. I love it.
Exactly. That's the easiest way. I mean, that's without having to spend a whole bunch of money on boats because they are a lot of money. You get
Yes.
all the experience without the expense for a while until you are really ready, and then it all falls into place.
I think that is such a great point. And Paul and I try to make that point a lot about kayaks. We've made that point about boats. Although I will say we probably don't have a lot of ground to stand on when it comes to boats because we've both owned like one small outboard boat. Like I had a small aluminum John, and then you had like a deep V hull style aluminum boat, both like 14 footer or less, like tiny little boats, right? And we're
I
just
have a Coleman Crawdad.
There you
okay,
go.
okay. You get it. You get it.
Yes.
So like we just struggled with, the small trailers difficult and then like we both dropped in without our plug the first time because that's like a rite of passage and then we just didn't enjoy it as much as our kayaks. So we're bad boat owners, but we do we're not really for that. That said, I think you just brought up a fantastic point that being just in a boat where somebody else operates said boat and like they launch it, they run it, they take care of it, and you're learning about that is such a great starting point. And I wish I had done that versus just going all in. I mean, I kind of lucked into my boat. I know. Well, you came out even because you sold your boat for the same thing you paid for it, which was dope. So we didn't lose anything on this battle. We learned a very school of hard knocks level education about boats. But to your point, if we had grown up fishing and like been in a boat with somebody, we'd probably know a lot more. I mean, I got immediately made fun of by all my friends that are farmers when I said I can't back this boat up, and they're like, you've never used a trailer? I was like, no, I've literally never used a trailer, not once ever in my life till I got this boat, and I was like, cool, we're done.
She just downgraded you so much. She's like, oh man, I gotta go, guys. I'm busy.
I mean, look the
You'd
part
be
of the trailer
surprised.
driver.
There's a lot of people like that, and it's yeah.
Who are you calling people like that? What do you
The
say?
worst
Non-trailer drivers.
The worst part about those trailers too is they're not very long. And if you've ever driven a different kind of trailer, like, or multiple types of trailers, the worst ones are the shortest ones, because you like cough a little bit and that thing's like jackknifed. It does not take much. And when they're low, because we have a jet ski one that's it's probably 12 feet at the most. You can't see it past the tailgate. I don't even know that it's there. I don't know that I screwed up until I hear it hit my bumper. Like, wait a minute.
I see it screech past like the brake lights, and I'm like, oh, it's there, it's out, it's not going straight. We're done. Yeah, so Nightmare City. But yeah, I mean, if we had been able to be in a position where we could have learned from another boater, man, who knows? Maybe we wouldn't own kayaks. Maybe we'd own boats. Probably
not.
That future. I have a question about like the tournament process, because I guess this is my perception of things. Like, I know how my brain works, and I know I would like do a bunch of preparation. I'd read a bunch of articles. I would talk to people, and I would try and be as prepared as possible for like my first tournament. And then I would like be ready for the fact that I was gonna be wrong about a lot of stuff. And then as I would like to continue to do them, I would see myself like creating my own process for like how you attack a tournament, like everything from what you do the night or the week before, what your preparation looks like leading up to a tournament, and then like what you actually do like on like game day. And I'm using air quotes for those of you who can't see me on YouTube. I mean, game day. Kind of walk us through like what your process is, and then like how you created that process, like what mistakes you made, and what you've seen some other people do as you kind of going up the ladder, so to speak.
I do a lot of research. Weeks before, I look up Google Maps, Google Earth. I get paper maps. I look at the Navionics app.
That is a great app.
It is. I try to get as much information as I can. And I also look at old tournaments that have been done on that body of water over time, and see what the winning patterns were, if there was any sort of pattern that seems to replicate itself at a certain point in time. Especially if this is a new body of water. If it's a body of water that I've been on before, I'll go to the Angler app and look at some of my previous successes and such. And on game day, what I do is I have a set amount of stuff, because as a co-angler, you can only take so much stuff with you. So you have to have it kind of dialed down, but with a little bit of wiggle room. And then I go out and I fish what I've had in my mind. I also, make sure I'm looking around to see if there's anything that is contradicting my pattern. And I watch what my boater's doing. And, you have to be overly prepared, but ready to throw it all out the window at a moment's notice and start doing something completely different, because the bass don't go by your playbook. They go by their own, and you've got to fish to them, not you. So you just got to be very flexible.
So how long do you give a strategy before you're like, set it on fire?
Once I lose my confidence in it, because if you don't fish with all your confidence, you start doubting yourself, in the back of your mind, you're not going to be at your best. And, your stuff's going to fall apart. Those little gremlins in the back of your head are going to start talking, and you might as well just call it quits.
I have so many times tried to put because we talked about that on like our first episode, is like one of the most important things you can do is like fish with confidence. Like if you're not fishing with confidence, to your point, like it, you can like feel the difference. And I've been trying to, in my own brain, like pick apart like what the actual difference is. One thing that I know that it definitely is when I'm not fishing with confidence, I don't cast as many times at a spot that I would, and I work way faster on retrieve, like 3 times faster on retrieve. I don't know. That's just my feeling of it. I don't know if there's something else to it, but I know for sure, like those two things, I feel myself being like, where normally if I saw a hole, I'd cast it like 30 or 40 times. I'd sit there for 20 minutes being like, dude, I know there's a fish in there and I know that this is going to get it. And I would like hammer away at it until I was like, okay, there's no fish there. And I leave. I mean, versus if I'm not fishing with confidence, I'd plunk a worm down there 3 times and be like, we're not worth it, and like buzz off. But that is fishing with confidence. I don't know if is there anything else that you've noticed, like when you get that feeling that like flips the switch where you're like, yeah, I don't believe that this is gonna work?
I don't know. It's just some intuition. It's just like a gut feeling that you've casted into this area for a few times and you're not getting bit. So, well, then I'll try a different lure, a different approach, a different angle. I'll try different things before I'm like, okay, it's just not the time. Either there's no fish there, or they're just not biting, or it's the wrong time of day. Something's off. I'll come back to this. If this is like a spot that has been a really good producer or something, it could just be the wrong time. So come back later, but you can't, especially in a tournament situation, you can't stick. You can't get stuck in a spot. You have to keep going. So you just have to rely on your gut instincts.
Love that.
So it's but at the end of the day, like you're making educated decisions based on your research and also based on your gut feeling, which is great. I mean, and to your point, and to Paul's point, it's like, I could definitely tell when I'm not fishing with confidence. For me, Paul watches this happen sometimes. I basically just cut off every bait after one cast and change it to the next bait. I'm like, nope, it's not gonna do that. Just go. Or like on the retrieve, I do what Paul just said. I go really fast. I'm like, well, it's not working. I cast it 3 times. I gave it 3 minutes. It's not working. I'm out of here. So, yeah, it's such a great point. I think that's huge for anybody, and I think it's huge. It's something I hear a lot from not necessarily like just in tournament situations, but like people getting into fishing. Right? Like somebody told them the Texas rig worm works. They throw one on, they cast it into a pond. They don't get a fish on like 5 casts. They're like, I'm done. Fishing sucks. So, to anybody who's kind of like getting started with this is really important. Like do a little bit of research, use apps like Angler, like find, spots that produce, you learn from it. One of like the best things Paul taught me when we first both got into this was like just documenting what was happening that day. What was the weather like? What was the pressure like? Water level, water temp, what were the fish biting on? What time of year was it? And that was before we knew what Angler was. So it's cool that apps like Angler now exist where you can just, hey, I caught a fish here. And then like it just records everything for you. And we had notebooks. We just had notebooks full of like this day, this time, it was this temperature on January the 1st of 2018.
I will say I had not opened the Angler app for like a year, and I popped it open like a couple of days ago, and I got really ticked off because I'm looking through it and I had this, no, not in a bad way. It was totally me misreading this. I was seeing all these catches and I'm like, dude, that's my spot. Who's going to my spot and catching fish? I was like, oh, those are all mine for that I recorded like years ago. And I was like, son of a, like, dude, I was getting really mad. I was like, how are people only fishing where I fish? Like, who found out about my spots?
That looks like my hand. That seems to be a fish that I may have caught before. Yeah. That's definitely like, my
they're
house.
Sending me pictures of things that I've done. It was so fun. Yeah.
He like texted within 5 minutes. He was like, oh, it was me. Okay, cool, man. Learn. So like
Angler obviously has a better memory than I do.
Well, that's kind of the point. Yeah. And like we both had bullseyes. So like I bought him and I bullseyes and we were going to do this thing and like use them. And I think I used mine for a little bit and then I couldn't get this app like working for me. And they've since made crazy updates to this app. This app is like great now. But I lost my bullseye. So I got to go get a new one. It's really sad. I've looked everywhere for it. It's gone. It's toast.
I found mine, and I knew where it was the whole time because I attached it to like probably the most expensive item that's not my kayak because I knew I would not lose that.
That's really smart, and I didn't do that. I probably attached it to a piece of garbage and then threw it away. Like,
Bingo.
That's why I put
knowing
it on
me.
my hat.
I was
Yeah,
about to say she's got it right here.
she's
I'm like
ready to
waiting
go.
for her to. If you can't see it, it's right on her head. I'm like I'm waiting for her to be like, doot, doot, just got one right there.
Lucky catch.
So I have a question about you mentioned Navionics or Navionics, and then you mentioned Google Earth, which is I feel like the world forgot about Google Earth. It is a phenomenal. I feel like the
Carrie's like,
world
I
is
did.
kind of like I have not either because I use it. I use it actually to track hunting spots and like do all my scouting for deer and duck. Um, I bring this up because one, it's an underrated tool, but two, when you're looking at a new piece of water, we talked a little bit about this in one of our earlier podcasts because I'm obsessive about this. Like every time we go to a new piece of water, I send Jeff like a picture of like where all the drop offs are, and I like mention like here's the 17 places that we should probably go. But I would love to get your perspective on, especially for bass, because I think a lot, obviously bass fishing is like the most popular form of fishing that's out there. Like for bass specifically, like what are you looking for? Like when you Google Earth or Navionics, Google like a lake, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna tear this thing apart. What are you starting to look for, and then what are the things that you're like putting an X there? That's where I'm going at some point, in the day.
I'm looking for hopefully winter time pictures when they draw down the lakes. That's the best time that you can see all the underwater features. There's a rock over there. There's a sandbar right there. You start seeing stuff that you normally might not be privy to. I look for contrasts in the shore. Is there like gravel over here that starts turning into grass and stuff, and just different parts of the points, main lake areas. If I can see a old channel, old road beds, anything that I know fish usually stack up on.
Mm.
So basically anything that might not be on a map, it's always just a good starting point.
And then you kind of pick it apart with electronics when you get out there.
Yeah, exactly. That's when I go to the Navionics, and I've got all the contours and everything, and I'll kind of like I'll have the photo of Google Earth and everything. And I'll just kind of compare and everything and figure out where exactly I am, and start doing my own, on the water research right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge. I think it's huge even for like any bank anglers listening right now. Like there's nothing worse than just wandering the bank and hoping that you're casting into a good spot. And then if you brought your shades, maybe you can see. But if you don't have shades and you only have your phone because you chose wrong, just kidding, Carrie. but like if you have your shades, like how many times have I like been on the river casting into a spot that looks like a hole and it's like a foot deep? Like 1,000 times. If it's that muddy, like it looks like it's going to be a hole and it's just a beach.
Yeah.
I think that happens to people a lot. But yeah, if reading the depth charts is so underrated. I mean, Paul made me start doing it. And before I had done that, I was like, cool, I'll just guess. And before I had like electronics on the water too, it's like you're just guessing. Like you have no idea what's below you. And if you know that it's like good structure and that there's, maybe some humps or some deep points, like all of a sudden you can find the fish. It's like magic, except it's science. So it's great.
The fact that they've got castable sonar units now, that helps bank anglers so much.
Yeah, 100%. Those are awesome. All right, so there's a lot out there. If you don't mind me asking, would there be one that you suggest for people to get?
Probably the sonar deeper. That's
The
probably
deeper?
I've heard
Okay,
yeah, that's the one that I've heard the best reviews about.
Gotcha. Yeah, there's a ton out there. So that was one I was looking at before we ended up with the houseboat that I now own that has electronics on it.
Nice.
So I have a question about when you get on the water, how long are you waiting? Well, I guess okay, two questions that I will wait for.
It expands.
How yeah, it always does. How long is it before you cast your first cast in like a tournament setting?
Immediately.
Love that.
100%.
I love that. One cheat code, just for anyone out there who just like really wants to like get a fish in the boat. One cheat code when especially this works really, really well early morning. Typically when you're launching a boat of any sort, there is like a channel like where boats all get away to get into some depth. If you cast like to the edge of that, almost no matter how far away from the dock you are, with a wacky rigged worm with no weight, your chances of catching a fish are like stupid high. Like stupid high. Like if you just want to catch one fish and feel like your day is gonna be awesome, know where that channel is and just cast something that sinks super slow and is like a proven catcher, and you like your chances are wicked high, like way high.
Yep. I've almost won tournaments just on that. Outfished my boaters. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Highly underrated, that whole area.
That's awesome.
I agree. I will, a lot of times, if I want to keep a bass, I will not keep any of the bass that I find for the day. And then on the way out, I will fish the channel edge, like as I'm leaving, hoping to get one that is going to be keeper size.
The eater.
Dude, it's a thing. But so thank you for answering that question. My next question that is related is can you kind of explain like the general rules and like the things you need to think about and like that are associated with like tournament fishing? So like, for example, what time do they typically start? What is the duration typically? And then how do you like as you're catching fish, like can you kind of explain like how are you like logging your catches?
Okay. So typically, tournament starts just after sunrise because of boating laws. So around like anywhere from 5 to 7 in the morning, and they last 8 hours throughout the day. Usually, my day starts earlier than that, depending on where my tournament is. If I've got to drive down there, so I could be up at 2 a.m. getting ready to leave to go to this tournament. And
you're my type of person. I love that.
So it makes for a long day.
Oh yeah.
But they start early, and they end typically around like 3 or so. Weigh-ins are like an hour and a half, depending on how many people are there. You do the ceremony, you help your boaters and everything with packing up the boat and stuff, getting everything together, and you're done.
What's worse, leaving a jammed sold out concert out of a parking structure or trying to wait for all those dudes to get boats out?
Ooh. I would say probably leaving the concert, because you can always help the people. If you can see them struggling, or you see that there's either a guy that's launching by himself or something, you can always try and help out. If you've got your stuff already sorted, you can go and help the next person, either by helping launching them and parking their vehicle, or there's always something to help it move and progress.
Instead of just watching the dude stick his credit card in the thing and be like, "It doesn't work. Press the button. I need help."
Yeah.
You can't help them. They're helpless.
All right. So I have another question related to the duration, because this is something that I am personally very aware of. When I'm in a competitive situation, if I get hangry, I'm irretrievable. I cannot be saved. I'm toast. So how do you
It's so true.
how do you get up at 3 a.m. or whatever at best, right? Maybe you're getting up at 5. How are you getting up early, trying to stay focused on obviously your objective, and then like staying at like an 11 out of 10, so that you're not getting crabby, so that you're not quitting on your baits early, so that you're not like, I won't go to spot number 10. It's not worth it. And like, how do you keep it all together? Like, what are some of your strategies for that? Because I can see myself getting
It's all
crabby.
about preparation, and you can either prep your meals the night before and get them ready, like a sandwich or something, buying snacks and everything, or you can go to like a convenience store on your way out and get some food. Go to the Dunkin' Donuts, whatever. Bring snacks with you, you know. And if you start feeling yourself getting a little hangry, I think there's nothing wrong with stopping what you're doing and just take a little break. You'll not only get yourself refreshed and everything, mentally but physically, feeding and everything. So sometimes you do have to take that break. I mean, you don't want to get spun out during a tournament. So it's actually wise to try to eat, just balance yourself. Everything's in moderation and balance. So.
I love that. I love the idea on the break is so huge, because like Paul and I will get really mad at points, or one of us is mad, usually both, but one of us sometimes. I won't name names, but it's me, and we'll just have to figure something out. But yeah, the break helps so much. It helps so much. Even if you've, I don't know, lost a fishing rod in the river, if you pull over and take a break, sometimes you can regain your confidence and come back and fish a little bit longer. But one question I do have to ask you, I'm going to put you on the spot here. What are your go-to snacks? And what's that sandwich you just mentioned? Like, what's your sandwich of the day? Mine is PB&J. I'll just like, hey, PB&J all day.
That's a classic.
What is yours?
I am a big beef jerky and fruit snacks person.
Fruit snacks, that's awesome. I'm bringing some this weekend.
You get a little bit of salty and sweet and some meat and protein. You got to get the Gatorade, Powerade Gatorade. Yes. Keep hydrated. So, I don't try to bring like a whole bunch of stuff that will make you sick, because you don't want to be in the hot sun and eating like a bunch of sugar and stuff, because that'll mess with you.
So no sushi, no milk.
That's all I bring.
And
whole milk.
Give you fair warning. I will bring a banana. So, yes, I know it's a big no-no, but I have never been negative.
All right, I'm turning the camera off.
Wait. Do you tell your boaters that, or do you like sneak the banana? You're just like eating it in the back of the boat.
They have no clue.
They don't know.
Oh no!
Because
we shouldn't air this episode. Hang on, Carrie. We have to censor this part.
Yeah, I feel like we just doxed you. Like you've been outed.
I've never seen. I mean, I believe like having certain what do you call them? Not exactly superstitions, but certain things that you do, to help bring luck. But I mean, just bringing a banana is not really. I've never seen any sort of negative effect when it came to that. If anything, I felt better because of the potassium and stuff. So
because of nutrition, Paul.
I took Jeff brought a banana with him in his lunchbox a couple days ago. I took that thing, and you can go watch it on Instagram right now. I took that thing and I hucked it, and I was gone.
Just 40 feet in the air, gone, and all the boats around us were like, "What's going on?"
Why is that guy shouting at that other guy throwing his snacks in the water?
See, but were we struggling because it was no luck duck, or because I had a banana? I don't know. We didn't catch any more fish after that.
That's not true.
You caught a fish. You caught that one for the road. Ding for the road.
I am with you on the B6, 1000%. Super underrated. The other thing you got to think about, not necessarily so much on the boat, meltable snacks in a kayak are not a good option. You want to know how many times I bring chocolate with me in the boat?
Ooh.
0. Do not do it. I learned that mistake. Unless you got a cooler with you. But yeah, unless you got a cooler, like I'm running beef jerky. I'll eat like 600 pounds of beef jerky. That's just like straight salt sticks, but I feel great.
Good.
All right. Another question I have is, how did the transition from like traditional fishing, like when you transitioned like towards tournaments, did you like go home? Do you like go home and then like you get to the bank, or you get in like your boat or whatever, and you're like, are you like attacking it like you do a tournament, or are you out there like on a pleasure cruise? Like, did it change regular fishing for you? Because I'm concerned. I'm already so competitive with myself that I can ruin it. I'm concerned that if I go down this dark path, I may never return to like regular fun.
The dark path.
I would
Wow.
say no. Now, as far as like the actively fishing, it's maybe helping me be better at targeting certain structure more than other places. I would say probably the only thing that has changed is my retrieve. I will horse the fishing. And
Oh,
so I've been told by people that would like watch me from behind, they're like, don't, play the fish, and they're like freaking out that I'm horsing the sucker in and skiing it in. And
yeah.
it's fine. I mean,
It's actually better for the fish. The shorter amount of time that they're out of the water and in that stressful situation, the better. I now, as I've gotten older, get more stressed the longer the fish is in the boat, to the point where like grip and grins make me a little bit uneasy, and
hence the phone choice.
yeah, I've kind of stopped doing it. It just makes me uneasy. Maybe I'm just a dork, but like it is actually better for a fish if you can get him in the boat quickly and then get him out back in the water as quick as possible.
You haven't kind of decided to stop doing that. You put your foot down. I'm pretty sure you pledged never to grip and grin again, which means because you have an Instagram at Paul_J_glass. You
You're
guys
looking for a follow.
But if you pop a grip and grin on there, I don't know.
We'll see how long it lasts. It will, if I start doing it again, I can promise you will see how much it's bothering me in my eyes.
Man tears.
I will. It'll bother me.
I'll tell you that as far as bank fishing, horsing them in, it's a lot better because I've got so many things that fish can wrap you around in. It's just, it doesn't make any sense for me to try and play the fish and do this and that when he could wrap himself around a log, and then I got to deal with that. Because I've had to go into a lake to try and rescue a fish that wrapped himself around weeds and everything, and it's not fun.
It's not fun.
Fun side story on that note. Paul and I were wading a river near my house, to be unnamed. And as we were waiting, we were like doing ultralight casting right after a CrossFit tournament or competition that we won, which was fantastic. But anyways, just saying. It was at my gym. I totally just made it work. Anyways, so we were like waiting, doing ultralight fishing, and I saw like some boiling like amongst some foliage, and I went over to inspect said boiling, and I picked up a fishing line. I was like, huh, neat. And I just like followed the line because I don't like when people leave their fishing line in the water, so I clean up after terrible people. So I was just pulling this in, wadding it up, stuffing it in my waders, or we were wet wading, whatever, stuffing it in my pocket. And all of a sudden I get a tug, and then this fish starts moving around, and I hand reeled him in, and it was a bass, a smallmouth, on a Ned rig that it had basically swallowed. And it looked like somebody had been casting from the bridge because we had just dropped in. There was a bridge above us. Somebody was casting, they got hung up, and they were like, well, too bad, cut the line, because there's so much line on this thing. So we had our pliers, which didn't win this tournament, but we had our pliers. And I removed the Ned rig. Fish was fine, let him go. But dude, imagine like you're just choked to death.
Right.
He was hung up in the
Yeah.
weeds on braided line. Dude was toast. And then I fished that Ned rig and we caught more fish on it.
There you go. The
That was
fish gods
awesome.
approved. You saved the fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
like saving fish.
That's
I
karma.
could.
not everyone is as good of a person as you. I would applaud that. If I saw someone be like chuck their muck boots and then just like go diving in after like a hung up fish, I'd be like, I'm gonna make a medal and I'm gonna bring it back here and I'm gonna give it to you.
You stay here. I'll be back in a week or two.
I just need to go buy a soldering iron and some.
I gotta learn how to do this whole thing, but I'm gonna figure it out, make it. I'll be right back. You better still be here.
I love it. All right.
100%.
So one thing I have to ask you too is, do you feel like your background in the military has kind of given you a little bit of edge as far as like staying driven, staying focused, and kind of not getting rattled as you're like watching other people boat a big fish and you're like, dude, I was in second, and now I'm probably not.
Yes, definitely. They prepare you to be able to function in a highly stressful situation and how to think on your feet and quickly. So yeah, it definitely helped.
Or I can only imagine. I want to call that out because I do feel like, man, I was kind of like, there's so many things that can derail you, whether you're playing sports or, and I consider this, right, like a type of sport, competition, whatever you want to call it. Like there's so many things that can derail you. And there's some things that are really obvious, like getting hangry, getting sunburned, whatever, and you're just like uncomfortable. It's all just another stick on the pile of like your ability to mentally deal with things that I think a lot of people are just like not self-aware of. And we were talking about earlier, like confidence bait, fishing with confidence. Like if you're uncomfortable and on top of it, you're super stressed out and you're not managing it because like you've never been taught to manage it, or you're not like doing it actively because it takes like willpower to do that for freaking 8 or 9 hours. That'll mess you up. It doesn't matter if you're like, doesn't matter if you're playing sport or, like you're playing soccer or, rugby or whatever. And then, or you're trying to win a fishing tournament. Like that, like managing that mental stress is, I feel like it's gotta be one of the biggest factors, like to having consistent success.
Yes. Yeah, it's about 90% mental and 10% physical.
Love it.
Rad.
Love it. So I have another question. One of the last ones, because we're coming up kind of on the end here, but we have unlimited time. So if you want to go, you can keep going. But I love how you said about kind of with the people that you're fishing with, you mentioned like that they're a great group of guys. Mm-hmm. Like how do you feel like females in general are kind of being represented on the tournament scene, and like how over the time that you've been doing this, how do you feel like maybe that has changed, or has it?
And in the fishing industry in general, I would say too, in this as well. Take Carrie.
I think that females are obviously the minority. This is a male-driven, dominated sport. And I think that there is definitely more acceptance on the male side. There's a lot of programs where they're trying to get more females involved, which is great. And I hope it continues. But right now, yeah, it's we're few and far between with pro fishing, females doing professional fishing. There has been women that have been in the Bassmaster Classic that you've never heard of, and that's kind of a sad thing. And it's only been a recent development as well. So I'm looking forward to the time where you've got females, as famous as Kevin Van Dam. Hopefully that's soon. It may take a little while, but I think it will happen. And go ahead.
I'd like to see it be because they're like badass fishermen, right?
Because they're just crushing it,
right?
Obviously.
Like that's why.
Yeah.
That's why you want to see it. There are a couple of brands out there that I think are doing a really good job of being intentional about like, not like branding to women, but showcasing women that are kind of just out there doing their thing, right? Like, like kind of amplifying that voice so that it's giving some confidence to some people who maybe never thought about fishing to like maybe go do it. So like St. Croix Rods, I think, has done a really good job as of late. Sims does a pretty good job of it. And then, there's some other companies out there too. There's a lot of other ones out there too, but
Monster Bass.
Monster
Yeah.
Bass, right?
Monster bass.
There you
Nailing
go.
it. Love
There
it.
you go.
And not to make you feel like you need to like be a voice for all women or whatever, but I did want to kind of get your perspective.
But you are. No pressure.
But I do think it's really cool, and like, and it's obviously it's very similar to some anything else where you're kind of thinking you're like it's an intimidating situation where like you kind of know going in that you're going to be a little bit on an island, like if like, whether it's your first time going to the gym, you know that you're probably going to be the only person going there that doesn't know what they're doing, right? Because everyone else there, that's what they do.
But it's not true.
It's
Nobody
not
else
true.
knows what
But
they're doing. Nobody there knows.
Yeah, that's how it feels though, right? I mean, that's like your perception of it the first time you go, and you could be the first time you walk into a fly shop. I know I've had that like awkward feeling of being like, I know that everyone here knows what they're doing, or at least feels that way, and I'm gonna be the odd man out. And in this case, you could be the odd woman out because you know that this like fishing in general is like a very male dominated sport. So kudos for you to doing what you want to do, and like obviously kind of paving your own way. I think that's awesome. It takes a lot of guts to do something like that. It really does.
Thank you.
I've got like 15 more questions.
I'm down if you are.
I think we hit all the big ones. Jeff, did you have anything else that you kind of wanted to get into?
Actually, one thing I do want to ask you based on the female angler angle, because I think that's a huge one that we could probably spend all day on. But are there any women in the industry right now that you feel are just absolutely crushing it? Like people that are awesome, other than yourself, who, by the way, people you need to follow, Carrie Cates. It's at blackbassangler on Instagram. Wait, do you have any other channels? If you thought, I've seen you written some blogs.
I do. I write blogs for Angler and Monster Bass. I do have a YouTube channel. I'm trying to kind of get started, but right now there's only one video. So I'm still trying to figure that whole side out. I'm mostly Instagram based.
Okay, well you just need another video and then a one after that. That's it.
You can't have 10 without one.
It's fun, dude. We just had this conversation with Brian, Fisher of Men. We were like, bro, why, you do this truck bed talk on your Instagram. Like, why don't you do a YouTube channel? Because if I can start doing it, I don't know anything, then anybody can start doing it. I have no idea what's going on. Like we're just piecing this thing together literally every day. But what I've found, honestly, like my thoughts, Paul completely agrees with this because we've already talked about it. He doesn't know what it is, but he does. It's that, just being your authentic self, like who you see on camera, what you see is what you get. Who you see on camera is who we are. And I'm sure who you are on your Instagram. So you just be your authentic self and then you just make content. And like sometimes there's a framework and sometimes Paul and I break a bunch of rods and lose stuff in a river and cry about it. And that becomes like our best fishing video. But like you never know what's going to happen. But as long as this is why I was like, I don't have my phone. Do I have my GoPro? As long as I got that, like we got content. It almost doesn't matter. We're not going to take time to stage any of that crap. Like, we're just like, we like this product. Let's talk about it. Like with Monster Bass, for example, I just did unboxings and was like, Monster Bass is great. Let's talk about this more. And then compare like the two big titans in the industry, and that's basically the best videos I make as far as production goes. So just do an unboxing to start, review some stuff, but just film your fishing in tournaments. Cause like Paul and I would watch that stuff because we're nerds about it. We want to learn how to do that. And I think it takes a lot to do that, and there are a lot of people that want to learn from you, and I think I would assume because of the amount of research that you do that you have a lot of knowledge to share. So I think it'd be cool. I'm gonna push you, and you're the second person from Monster Bass that I'm pushing to do this, to make more videos, put them on YouTube.
I've thought about doing that. I'm just trying to figure out the logistics and everything, because especially during the tournament, you want to be cognizant of your boater because they may not want you
What are
recording
you
certain
using
things.
over there? What's your
Yeah,
secret bait?
or their spot.
Yeah.
So you have to. Yeah.
Jeff.
But if
I
you
would
know,
never give away a spot. I'd never do that.
so, but yeah, that's a great idea. Definitely, I've thought about doing like tutorials or like doing a live stream where I'm just fishing and people can send me questions or something, just kind of
Yeah.
a laid back thing. Like hey, come join me fishing.
Yeah, I mean, JC Dropshot does that on his Off the Dock series. He basically just goes live and talks to anybody in the industry. We literally talk to anybody in the industry. We're just like, hey, Carrie, do you want to hop on a podcast? That'd be great because we just want to talk to fellow anglers, especially if they like the stuff we like and like you're on the Monster Bass team. So I thought, heck yeah, I want to talk to this person. But yeah, you could definitely do that. But I think even what we've talked about today, like fishing with confidence, your confidence baits, how you pick spots, how you pick apart a new body of water, like these are all things that I think people search for and want to know about. So I think it'd be really cool to see you do like 9 more videos and get your first 10 up. So let's start
We'll
small.
work on it.
Just do one. Just do one. But yeah, with YouTube, it's literally just like consistency. Like ever since I started posting like 2 videos a week, my channel has grown. And we're just going to keep hammering that content. We got to make like 4 more videos this weekend. Paul's super pumped about it. I usually just drag Paul into it. I'm like, we got to make this video. Okay.
Fine, I'll bring all the stuff and get up at 4 a.m. I'll see you at 5.
Yeah, you get up early. It's funny we were talking about getting up early. I was laughing in my head.
Yes.
Paul was laughing out loud. He gets there at like 5 a.m. and then I roll in at like 6:30. I'm like, hey bro, you ready to go? He's got all his rods rigged. He's like,
yeah, bro.
He's been fishing from the bank, just thinking about life.
There you go.
All right. My final question.
Wait, I didn't get my question answered. I went on a tangent.
That's right.
I went on a tangent. That's my fault. So going back, dial it back, hit rewind. What we needed to know was other than you, because then I gave you the shout out and then we got lost. Other than you, are there any female anglers out there that you think are crushing it, like pushing this movement and driving equality within the industry?
I know there is a growing presence of female anglers on college fishing teams, and some that are all female college fishing teams, which I think is awesome, and they are crushing it. So I think there's definitely people should pay attention to that for sure. There's Hannah, who's on the Monster Bass team as well. She does, I think she's 706 Fishing.
Yep.
On YouTube. That's awesome. So yeah, I'm starting to see, some people are females that are doing YouTube videos. There's see, I can't think of anybody by name, but I know there's definitely a growing presence, especially on the college side and the high school teams too. So I mean that is definitely our future right there for the sport. If we can keep the momentum going, it's going to be very interesting.
Grassroots.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome to hear. I love it. All right. Paul, any other questions?
My only and last question is, should Jeff and I do a tournament? And if we did, should we compete against each other?
Absolutely.
No.
That was too easy.
Oh, man. It's tough. I don't even know how we'd fare.
That's the whole point.
Yeah, I'm nervous about it. I'm scared.
Aww.
I
feel like if she does a YouTube video, like we have to do a tournament. I feel like that's
deal. All right, is that a deal, Carrie? We're doing this. So you're gonna do more YouTube videos, and Paul and I will enter a tournament.
Sounds good.
Yes, you heard it here first.
Right. Everyone's got their marching orders. Carrie, yep. I just want to say thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. It was awesome to talk to you.
Thank you very much for having me on here.
No doubt.
It's been a great time. Listeners, people, if you like the podcast, be sure to subscribe. Give us a 5-star review if you enjoyed it. Drop us a comment. Let us know how we can improve this show, or let us know what topics you'd like us to cover next. You can check us out at Burly Fishing on social media, or check out the YouTube channel Burly Fishing. And of course, we already talked about it. You need to go follow Carrie Cates at blackbassangler on Instagram. And what's your YouTube channel? What's it called?
Black Bass Angler.
Black Bass Angler. All right. Well, it's got one video now, but it's going to have 10 videos within the next month. Stay tuned. It's going to be great. And we will catch you all on the water.